I'm Nate Fishler. I run the BI team and the pricing team at a company called Kargo. It's an ad network. It's an ad tech company, and I'll go into a little bit about kind of the way the company makes money, the overall business model, because I really just want to emphasize that we sit on top of a tremendous amount of data. All of you guys, for your roles, sit on top of a ton of data as well, and we have that in common, right? Like business models aside, we all need to do something with this data. And so, do you have the clicker?
No, that's good. Before you, actually, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, what's your background, where you
come from?
How did you get here?
So I took a plane here, but the carbon emissions were offset, luckily. Thank you for that. My team and I, we work out of Manhattan. And so I worked in ad tech for about 8 years. So I've been in a few different companies. And really what ad tech is sort of the nexus between all of these publishers that you see online where they pay people to produce content. And of course, if that content is good enough, then you're going to get eyeballs attached to that content. Really what ad tech companies do primarily is they help those companies that are attracting those eyeballs monetize their web pages by basically selling ad campaigns onto the websites. And so this is kind of like our canned description of Kargo that I'll go ahead and read, which is we help businesses engage with consumers, and we're mobile specific, right? And so if you guys have seen like ads before that kind of look like that, that's one of our units, right? It's a little bit more interactive. It's a little bit more what we call premium. When I'm trying to describe what our ads are like to people, I say that it's kind of the opposite of the apple cider vinegar and belly fat ads that you see, which are kind of annoying and they're kind of spammy. So we work heavily with these creative agencies to really come up with the most immersive advertising experience we think we can come up with on a mobile device. That's Kargo in a nutshell. And so, well, let's.
Yeah. Do you want to just jump right into it?
So, yeah, we'll just jump right in. So smaller company. Okay, we have about 170 employees. We have some offices in Australia. We have some offices in New Zealand. But primarily, our revenue generation is here in the United States. But it's you think about all of the advertisements that you might see over the course of a year on your mobile device, and it turns out to be a pretty high number of transactions. And so these are a couple of the brands that we regularly work with. Okay, and then if you go to the next slide. These are some of the publishers that we work with, and so we very carefully curate our list of publishers. And I know that everybody loves free stuff here, and so if you all take out your mobile phone right now and you go to one of these websites, Kargo will give you a free advertisement. That's my attempt at a joke. So tough crowd, but we have a pretty carefully curated list of pubs. And we kind of connect the publishers and the advertisers together. And so really kind of where the rubber hits the road there is with the next slide, which is a little bit complicated, but I'll walk you through it. And so we have sellers go and source what we call demand, right? Because any auction has the supply and the demand side, and the demand here would be advertising dollars. And so let's say that Pfizer comes to us and they have an advertising campaign, and that campaign might go for X amount of days, and they want to spend X amount of dollars with us. And so what Pfizer does is work with us, and in doing so, we come up with creative content, and they will tell us, well, we want to place these ads on mobile devices of people 65 years or older with incomes maybe over $100,000 a year in the following zip codes. Okay, and that's called targeted advertising. And I'm sure that all of you guys have experienced some form of targeted advertising before, whether it's having conversations about whether or not Instagram is listening to your microphone or not. But we don't do anything like that. We just kind of push the ads however Pfizer would want to different publishers. And what ends up happening is there's an auction in the middle, and the money comes in, and the money then gets paid out to our publishing partners, and we take a cut of that. And so it's the gross revenue in, and our net revenue is that little piggy bank at the bottom there. And so in 2018, I think June 2017 through June 2018, we did about 11.5 billion transactions. And so if you think about a transaction, that's just one set of eyeballs seeing one ad. And when you think about what has to happen for one set of eyeballs to see one ad, you have all of the metadata about the mobile phone. You have all of the metadata about the campaign, the monetary transaction. And so we end up sitting on a pretty large amount of data. We use AWS and S3 for our staging, for our data lake. We actively are crunching about 20 terabytes a day into aggregate tables in Snowflake, and our Snowflake instance is about 800 terabytes. And so I can answer questions later about our whole tech stack. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with that, but it's a ton of data. And what ends up happening is in a company where not everybody is thinking like an engineer or thinking like a data person, they want to do the best job they can do. Maybe you have a seller, and the seller is concerned about meeting their sales quota, right? They want that quarterly commission. Or maybe you have a campaign manager that kind of makes sure that the campaign can execute correctly within the auction, because it has to be optimized in order for it to perform in the auction. What you want to be able to do is give every individual and every team and really every layer of the company the exact data set that they need while not overwhelming them with option paralysis. And so that's what my team and I have really been working on for almost the past year is, well, we have all this data. And before I joined Kargo, I've been at Kargo almost a year now. They were already Looker customers, okay? But the option paralysis existed, okay? I'm not going to claim that anyone implemented anything wrong. They implemented it in a way that serves some purposes, but didn't serve other purposes which I personally think are more important. For instance, if somebody had a need for data, they would file a ticket with our engineering department and they would get an Explorer specific for that request. What ended up happening is, we had like almost 100 Explorers, and so when people log into our Looker instance and they click on Explorer and they see this huge list, they don't know what to do. And so what we did is we said, all right, let's take a step back here, and we broke down what we kind of called it the Kargo periodic table of elements. So we said, well, what are all of the most granular elements of this business? And so this is just kind of a little word cloud we made, and so there's some repetition in here, but you can kind of see what we're getting at here, right? There's gross revenue, there's net revenue, there's advertiser, campaigns, clicks, opportunities from Salesforce. And then what you're able to do once you have your periodic table of business elements is you're able to organize those elements into groups, and oftentimes there's overlap in those groups, right? Maybe you have one Explorer that captures something and another Explorer that also captures that, but maybe with an additional layer of detail. And so we have really worked our butts off in order to clean up the Explorers to make them more relevant, and that's really what we're going to talk about today, is that journey.
No, that's a fantastic introduction. I really, really appreciate the overview of your
Sure.
business model. We already got a little bit into what we're going to talk about some more. So my name is Thelosen. I'm the Vice President of Professional Services here at Looker. And one of the things we have done over the last year is really review what have successful customers done in analytics, not just Looker, but in analytics as a whole. And where do we, what are some of the key aspects beyond technology that make for a very successful BI experience and analytics culture or data culture in a company? And if I had to break it down, I would break it down into those four pillars here, 4 key points. That you manage data as a product in your company, not as a thing that just is out there, that is not like either monetized or is not being thought of as a iterative process. Like data you don't just publish a report and it sits there. You publish a dashboard, you publish something, and you work with the audience to iterate on it and make it better with every release cycle or every few release cycles. It's not a static thing anymore that people just consume. It's something people interact with. Then decentralized support. How do you not just have one bottleneck analytics team that does everything, but how do you have actually people throughout the organization that can take on some of these answers and development of content as well. And then the data literacy and the education that we have to provide around using analytics in your day-to-day. And then finally, operationalizing. Like the really successful companies that we have seen, and we have talked to a ton of companies now, which is fantastic, they make analytics part of the day-to-day operation of a person. And we'll talk about that towards the end of this, this conversation. So the reason I really wanted Nate to be here today and talk about Kargo is that they started with Looker and it didn't quite take off. And then Nate came in there and had a plan and a vision. And as we talked with all these different companies, Kargo really stood out as tackling all of these 4 key points. So as we now go through this conversation here, I want to touch on them, and really I'm excited to hear the stories behind each one of them.
Sure. Yeah.
So let's start with the data as a product one.
Yeah.
So when we talk about that, I mean, first of all, you monetize data, of course.
Sure.
But then, how do you, as an analytics team, think of data not as a static product, right? Nobody builds a product and then just leaves it on the shelf forever, right? That's how. I mean, in the past, maybe people have done that, and it worked for a while. But in today's world, in 2019, you've got to iterate, you've got to constantly improve it, and you've got to listen to your users too.
Sure.
So how did you monetize, and then also how do you think of data as a product and a product owner of yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So those are really great questions. And so the way that I sort of view data is like any commodity, right? And so if you were planning a city and you wanted to supply water to people, water being the data in this example, right? You need to build out the pipes. And if you build out the pipes, then people are going to use the water, right? And so probably my head of HR would disagree with this. Probably they would say, oh, the people at Kargo are the company's most valuable commodity. And sure, my coworkers are great, and I do agree with that. But this is a company that runs off of data.
Okay.
And if we didn't have data, the company, we wouldn't be in business. And so in my mind, as the BI guy, it is by far our most valuable commodity. And because of that, my team, we really do 2 things, right? One of them is, well, we try to analyze things and come up with value-added procedures. And we'll talk about that on the tail end of this presentation, where we come up with some operational components and where we've driven efficiencies. But what I tell people when they start at Kargo, because we have an intro to BI meeting for all new hires once a month, is I say the real purpose of the BI team is to help you do the best job that you're capable of doing through empowering you with data delivery. And in order for that to happen, it needs to be available, right? It can't just be locked up or siloed somewhere. And so you said, well, you had a vision and this and that. The only vision that I really had, and this comes from lots of gripes, and this is kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different opinions about what we had to do with Looker, but I just wanted to simplify it and really make it easily accessible. That's the bottom line. And so what my team and I did is we pulled Looker usage stats, and that's just built into the platform itself. If you're in admin mode, and we looked up what users were using the platform. We looked up, maybe from that, what teams were using the platform, what dashboards, what looks were being used, which things weren't being used, right? And so from that, we were able to really kind of prune the tree, or at least get a plan on what the pruned tree would look like within our Looker instance.
And I hear that a lot, especially as we talk with customers that have been with us for a while, or even you just rolled out analytics,
sure,
and everybody wants to start with everything. Right?
Yeah.
They want to make all the data available to all the different people, and so they have I don't know how many explorers, and in each explorer they have every possible dimension available and every measure available. And what happens is that the people that have been with you for a while, they appreciate that. They know what matters to them. They know what it means. But it's very overwhelming for anyone who doesn't have that deep institutional knowledge.
Absolutely.
And so I think using the usage data, or either, if you have the option, hide with very few dimensions and measures, get people used to it, right? And then add a few. But keep in mind that at any given moment, there are new people joining your company. So what do you do? How do you educate them on a maybe somewhat chaotic instance, right? Like a somewhat chaotic explorer. How do you keep it pruned, to your point?
Absolutely. And so what we did is we did a bunch of things. We accessed all of our dimensions and measurements through Looker's API, and we had thousands and thousands of rows, and we were like, oh my God, we need to consolidate this, right? And so how do you consolidate that into explorers? Well, what explorers are being used the most? Can these explorers be combined, right? Our auction operates in UTC, but our business is in EST. And so do we create a new table, a super aggregate table that kind of breaks things out by hours, so you don't need to choose between time zone explorers anymore. And so we came up with a pretty good plan, and we actually worked with our program management team at Kargo, and we came up with what we called the Looker Relaunch Charter. And we had bi-monthly meetings, and it wasn't just us. We basically corralled in anyone that we thought was a high-level Looker user, somebody that might have strong opinions and valid opinions. And we just went to task with, well, what explorers do we not need here? And we would hide the explorers, and then we would wait to see if anyone complained. And if they didn't complain after a few weeks, we would just delete the explorer. And that turned out to be pretty effective. Like I don't think we really heard any gripes about that.
Yeah.
And we just kind of built out a new set of explorers. We revamped the descriptions completely.
Okay.
Because a lot of our explorers were provided by our engineering team, and our engineering team is fantastic, but they're not working on the business day to day, and because of that, they might not call a dimension or a measurement or an explorer the same thing that somebody on one of the operational teams or one of the sales teams might be used to.
So you're getting to a good point there, which is there's a data-driven approach to this, right? Like you pull your usage data, you look at what people are using, you work with engineering team and use maybe their naming convention initially, but then there's the point of also talking to the business itself.
Absolutely.
And that's actually where I would get to the second point on those 4 key points, the decentralized support. Let me just see how this, there we go. So one, you just, from anything we have talked to our users and customers about, is like having a one-on-one touch point to someone who is a data champion or a data ambassador or whatever you want to call it, a data steward, has been incredibly effective in wanting to use analytics. If you feel like you have someone you can trust, you can talk to, you're much more likely to embrace analytics in your day-to-day. It also provides a great opportunity for a relatively small and lean analytics team, like most are today, to get that feedback from their audience, right? And from the business users. It might be internal business users, it might be external business users, but you got to have these ambassadors.
You're absolutely right about that. So we looked for folks that had deep knowledge within their department, but also kind of had that I don't know, that tinkering bug, if that makes any sense, right? Folks that would model stuff out in Excel or in Google Sheets, folks that understand how to use nested formulas and things like that. Those folks are going to have the aptitude that's required to be what we called our Kargo Looker champions, and so there are about 10 of them, company-wide, and they're spread throughout different departments, and they're really kind of like the first point of contact, right? And so if somebody on our publishing partnership team has a question about Looker, they know that they can go to Sarah, who's on that team, right? And she really knows her stuff using Looker. And then if stuff gets really sticky, then she can pass stuff off to us. And that's one of the things that we do is we kind of act as the second tier of support, for dashboarding and things like that, stuff that she might not want to work with.
So what?
Can we ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just
Quickly, did you give these data stewards like LookML developer access, or were they like a front line where they would know how to use and explore?
So that's a really good question. So we actually lock our LookML access down pretty heavily. We feel like using a combination of probably stuff that isn't super best practice, but it's still very powerful. A combination of merging and calculated fields. Like you can do a lot of stuff with just those 2 things.
Yeah.
And so that's really kind of the main palette that they're working with.
And we have seen a difference. Like some companies say it's not like one answer. Like some departments, you have maybe some champions that graduate right to a level where you feel like you can trust them with some sort of LookML access, right, where they can maybe get their project that they can administer or something like that. But I think a lot of them start with just like dashboard building access, right, very basic things, and you start there.
Yeah, and it's been pretty successful, and we've taken surveys at regular intervals. I think the first surveys were put out maybe January of this year. So we've been asking people, hey, do you understand this tool better? Are you using this tool more? And the statistics that we've gotten from this completely unscientific survey, they're encouraging, right? That where usage is up 40% within the organization over the last year, things like that, and people are more comfortable with it. But anyway.
So one of the things that I also see companies do is giving some sort of recognition to those ambassadors for two reasons. One is you want to elevate someone, right, who is definitely doing maybe a bit more than their job, or it's a career progression too for many people. But then also, I think you want other people in the company to know that these are the people to ask me anything about data, right? Or at least ask me the basic things about data first, right? Like, so a little flag on their desk where it says, ask me about data, or maybe some sort of sticker on the computer or T-shirt or some wall of recognition, I think goes a long way. It seems minor, but it has gone a long way. Have you guys done anything? I see this sticker over there on the monitor.
Yeah, so one of the cool things about working at Kargo is that it considers itself an art company that happens to be an ad tech. And so we have like a team of really talented graphic designers, and I happen to sit right next to one of those guys. And so I'm like, listen, we need a sweet looking logo for these Looker champions. And so he was able to come up with this. For some of our other programs that we've done at Kargo, we've had like patches made and like all sorts of stuff. We're still trying to figure out how to do that. But I like the idea of recognition and sort of gamifying it a little bit. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So at one point, so one of the challenges some companies have is that they don't, they're not small enough anymore to know necessarily who the data champion could be or the ambassador. So I've worked, for example, with a globally distributed company, and what we did there, to your earlier point of using the usage data, is just go in and on every team found the one that used Looker the most. Like for every team, we picked that person and maybe the second one just in case, and we asked them, hey, we have a more advanced, advanced boot camp coming up with a little hackathon afterwards, and so we got them all in the virtual room. We gave them the more advanced training, and then we said, okay, we have 1 hour reserved, to see who can build the best dashboard on this particular use case, or on your particular use case, and that winner gets a gift card or something, right? Like in this case, it was a bottle of wine, but you choose yours, and that was great. Like you had people that are feeling like, okay, I'm getting the education that I need to have that sticker properly on my computer, and then they got something for it. So there's some gamifying around it. It's possible at any size. I mean, this was I think 25,000 people company, so it works at various sizes.
Yeah, so identifying the Looker champions is really, really important. But you want to be able to pair that with kind of like empowering really the layman users, right? Because you don't want the Looker champions to become basically a crutch for everyone else on their team.
Yeah.
And so another thing that we did that was really important was we use Bloomfire for our intranet, and we created a portal. It was and so that's our BI portal, and so we do weekly updates where we throw all of the weekly additions to Looker on there. Kargo does a town hall every Friday, and one of the slides in every town hall is for the BI team to talk about Looker and talk about the accomplishments and the updates and things that have happened, and just kind of that paired with good education. Yep. Because remember, we cleaned a lot of our explorers up. We tried to kind of make this nice curated walled garden where people could access data, where we had adjusted groups and permissions and like everything like that. But then you have to get everyone's buy-in.
Yeah. I think we're gonna get to data literacy in just a second here, which is the next topic we got to tackle, right? How do we educate those business users? Before we get there, is there the ambassador or the decentralized support also really gets you feedback, right, on the product? Mm-hmm. And is there any way you're tracking that? Is there a ticketing system you're using?
So we do use a BI ticketing system, and I would say that right now the majority of the tickets that get submitted to the team are from those advanced users and Looker champions, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. Like, it doesn't take a lot, but just to tell people how they should tell you what is needed, right? Those ambassadors, It can't always be an email or a Slack message or something like that, right? It should be some official, this is how you tell us the feedback, or some sort of regularly scheduled meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then data literacy, right? That's actually the next point here. I think in 2019, and it was the case in 2018 as well, like we assume people know how to use data for their day-to-day life. We assume that when they see a line chart that goes like this, that they know that it's not ideal. But that's not really, like that's not always true. Like you have a lot of people out there that don't really know how they can relate data exactly to what they do in their day-to-day. And so part of it is using a tool, right? If it is some sort of spreadsheeting tool, or if it is a BI tool like Looker, you got to be super comfortable using that, right? Like oh, this is what pivot means. I had so many times in my life now I had to explain what pivot means, right? It seems so essential to our lives, but we got to explain that one time. And so really having very basic training that you just show people how to do analytics, and then give them something, give them a KPI that relates somewhat directly to their day-to-day. I think is crucial. So some companies, they have their ambassadors do that training because they're so close to the actual business. And some, they have a formal training program. They have universities you can go to and whatnot. What have you guys done?
So we've done a bunch of stuff. So we came up with a really in-depth course called Looker 101. And it's a huge pain in the butt to get an entire team to come and attend our Looker 101 because it's 3 hours, okay? And it starts from the ground up. And by the ground up, we ask them, well, what is data really, right? What does data signify? And we show, if you look up data on Wikipedia, there's this old scanned document from a museum, and it's lens apertures from the 1600s. And so those are like really old data points. What were they trying to do there? Like that's how they used to capture that stuff, by hand. And so then we start talking about, well, why do we have so much data now? And it's because it's a combination of Moore's law, and so CPU, density is increasing while our cost of data is decreasing. And so those two things combined mean that companies like Kargo have way too much data for any single person to wrap their head around. And it's important to understand that in order to even be good at data analysis, in my mind, because it's why you have a social security number broken up into 3 bits. It's why you have a prefix or a postfix for a phone number, because your brain is good at digesting small amounts of information. And then you can sort of aggregate that up naturally. And so we kind of take them through this course that kind of teaches them to think like analysts, and kind of allows them to understand that if you understand that pattern recognition is really what the brain does best, you can sort of hack your way into some really good dashboards. And so it starts off really remedial, and it ends with people that have never used Looker before building forecasting models with using calculated fields, and being pretty comfortable with that. And so it's been pretty successful. We're planning on Looker 201. And so that's happening pretty soon, and that's going to be very department specific. And so it's going to be kind of an advanced Looker 101, but for the sales team or for our campaign management team. But really, it's about kind of helping people be comfortable in the platform. And I really think the biggest problem that I've seen is just the option paralysis factor of too many options. They don't know what to do, and so you kind of help them alleviate themselves from thinking that way. And then it sort of takes care of itself in a way. We also have dedicated Looker office hours, and so every Thursday, for 3 hours in a conference room, a big it's a really big conference room. It's like one of the biggest ones at our office. We book it up, and sometimes it's really busy and sometimes it's not, but it's always successful, where we answer people's questions, and people know that they can come to us and they can ask us anything about Looker that they want. A lot of people that use Looker, they don't really understand even what it is.
Yeah.
They don't understand that it's just kind of a glorified query constructor that sucks the results back into the system and allows you to visualize and do all sorts of neat stuff. And so people say, oh, my data in Looker is wrong. Something's wrong with Looker. Well, you educate them that, it's actually just visualizing that data. And then that kind of helps with questions and answers too.
No, exactly. Okay, no, this is fantastic. I think the part then as you conclude or as you go through the training and maybe have some sort of workshop component to it is related back to people's daily life, right? When you come in on Monday morning or Tuesday morning or every morning you come in, what do you do? What is the first thing you do? And how do you put data into that so that you then take actions, literally data-driven decision making, right? You start a decision by looking at data, thinking about it, take action, instead of doing stuff all week and on Friday make sure that the data matched what you were hoping so that your decisions are validated, right? That's pretty common actually. So that's where we get to operational analytics. How do you make sure that people start with data, then make decisions, take actions? I have seen fantastic things with our Action Hub, with data actions, where people just do it right in the BI tool. But how have you guys at Kargo thought about operationalizing analytics?
Yeah, so we do a bunch of things. Probably most of the people in this room, if you're Looker customers for any amount of time, are doing the same thing. If our morning reports don't send out every morning, people freak out, right? Like our executives are flying blind, our department leads are flying blind. And so every morning we have fairly detailed reports that send out information to our executive team, our leadership team about how our auction dynamics are performing, whether or not there are discrepancies within our data, right? Because that's really important because, in ad tech, all of this data has to tie out in order for you to send bills to any of these advertising agencies, right? We also came up with really nice dashboards that are kind of mobile friendly, and I'm really excited about Looker 7 because it looks like a lot of the reporting is going to be way more mobile friendly. But we basically built out these reports that filter off of the user attribute of the full name of the seller, and all of these single value visualizations look nice on a mobile device. We're like mobile first to Kargo and whatnot. So every morning, each seller sees their pipeline, and based on assumed campaign pacing amounts, they can see where they might land at the end of the quarter, and they can see, okay, what deals are not doing well and what deals are doing well. We use the Action Hub for one thing in particular that I think is pretty cool. So oftentimes a campaign, let's say that an ad campaign that runs for 7 days on our network has a budget of $7,000. So it should be spending $1,000 a day within our auction. Simple math. But sometimes it doesn't. And there are tons of reasons why it might not be. And so we built a look which, based on the information within the campaign, advises our campaign management team of what levers to tweak in order to try to optimize those campaigns. And so it's a look, it's there, you can look at it whenever you want. But what we also did was we used a yes/no calculated field, and we suppressed the no's, so only the yeses are going to show up, and only the yeses are the campaigns that we think, based on the logic we've put into this look, need to be optimized. Okay. And then we use the Action Hub, and we send that out every day to our campaign management team. And so every day when they get to work in this Slack channel, they'll see a list of the campaigns that probably need adjusting. So that's kind of an interesting use case as well.
That's fantastic.
Trying to think of some other. I mean, yeah, we use like custom drill downs to be able to click into our Salesforce instance. Yeah. Things of that nature, and then also the new alerting.
Alerting, yeah, that's fantastic. Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We'll stick around in the back if you have any more questions directly to us. But yeah, thanks for coming.